What's up, guys? Tukey here, and it is time to rebuild Hockeytown. This is the first episode of my new franchise mode series here on NHL 17 with the Detroit Red Wings. You guys voted for them, and originally I was going to wait a couple of days, really until the Bruins series was finished, but I am just too damn excited to start this series after the response with the poll video and after the response on episode 0. I wanted to get this underway as quickly as possible. Now, this will, for the most part, be a setup episode, as we are going to turn off GM firing. This is going to be a setup episode. I can't guarantee that, big moves will happen in the next episode. A big move might happen here. I'm not sure. The main thing I am planning on is confirming the settings, getting a look at the team, and seeing what we have to work for. Now, discard changes works for me. Let's go full sim. NHL rules. Injuries will be on, and that is one of the first things that I can confirm. The poll was very, very close. But we are going to keep injuries on. They will just be very heavily reduced. We might as well make 20 minutes. Who the hell cares? Authentic cap penalties will be off. That, along with draft pick ownership being changed over to classic. So everybody has their normal draft picks. There are no cap penalties or buyout penalties. And the reason I'm doing that, of course, is because as we have established, I am using a custom roster, not EA's most recent not EA's most recent roster update. So, for example, like the Brendan Smith trade, we wouldn't have those draft picks anyway. So I figured, why not give everybody a clean slate, and that way, it's a little bit more balanced out rather than just keeping it on authentic. But superstar difficulty's fine, classic salary cap, trade difficulty on hard, waivers is on, and that is looking good. Of course, we'll have to change these sliders to get injuries properly set up. Advanced settings, auto-rotate goalies is off because I still don't have too much faith in it. Continuous overtime, 1 point, tie break, waiver notifications on. Morale meetings, I don't much care for. So that works. And then we get into the gameplay sliders. We will pretty much leave everything the same, except injury occurrence. Of course, the magic number that I've been told, we're going to go 9 out of 100. And we will see what effect that has on this series. Everything else is good to go the way that it is, and we are ready to get a look at this team. Keep salary cap on, of course. I should note there have been a couple of changes, potentials. Rasmus Dahlin was someone who was heavily talked about, so we've changed him among some other players. A couple of overalls have changed. Mike Smith and Arvidsson from Nashville are two examples of that. There have been some new additions as Washington signed 2 NCAA players after I made that first video, so they have been added. We've also added some prospects from the 2018 draft, and as far as the big one was Johan Franzen, and people wanted to make sure that he wasn't in. What I've done, because I wasn't exactly happy with the way that the rosters worked in the prior series with the Bruins and the Fantasy Draft series, because it didn't really matter. Teams would still cut those players. So I just got rid of them. So like Stefan Robida on Toronto, we got rid of him. Franzen, Savard, people like that. You get the point. Chris Pronger, they're not in this sim. So teams that would have been affected by their cap hits are not affected in this sim. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Aside from the way we're going to handle trades, which we'll get into later. Draft picks, of course, a big thing. I'm going to do what I've done before. 3 picks maximum per round. Anything above that starts to get a little bit weird. So no more than 3 first-round picks, no more than 3 second-round picks, and only 12 picks maximum in a draft. Aside from that, I think we are good to go. And actually, damn, Jimmy Howard. I did bring down Jimmy Howard by 1 point, so we have 284 overall goalies. Unfortunately, both of them are starters. Jimmy Howard, though, it's going to be difficult to trade him, among other players, and we'll probably wait until the trade deadline to get rid of some of our more terrible contracts, if we're being honest, because we are going to factor in what players have no trade clauses or no movement clauses in real life. So that means Jonathan Ericsson, Zetterberg, Nielsen, Abdelkader, Helm, Green, Cronwall, and Jimmy Howard are only going to be able to be traded under certain circumstances, but we will talk about that more in the future. Jared Coro actually went up to an 81 overall. Pretty sure I made him an 80. So that's interesting that he's a backup, though, but he is going to have to start down in Grand Rapids this season, but at least we know we could have a backup if we are able to get rid of Jimmy Howard. Our 6 defensemen are pretty much set. Jensen listed as a depth guy, but right now we don't have any other decent improvements on him. Taking a look at our forwards, there are the 12. Is there somebody better than Drew Miller? We do have 3 guys listed as fourth liners. Of course, they will be more physically, focused players, Tyler Bertuzzi included. So we'll have to figure out how we want to handle that. And I probably will call up Tyler Bertuzzi immediately, and we'll just play Drew Miller down in the AHL. Tangradi, I'm not worried about. He's a little bit older. Mitch Callahan, he's really not going to make the NHL level. So that is the first change that we will make. But the team itself, I don't know how many changes we will make off the bat. We do need to take a look, though, at the player roles to get this figured out. So Sheahan is a third liner. We have a ton of players listed as third line guys. So how do we want to handle it? I guess our top 6 is pretty much locked in at this point, which, you know what, I'm okay with. It's locked in until we figure out what exactly we are doing with Henrik Zetterberg, basically. But that third line, Helm, Athanasiou, O'Reilly, Sheahan, I'm probably going to keep Sheahan on the fourth line to start. I'd rather have Abdelkader, Helm, and Athanasiou get that ice time. And aside from that, the defense is where it's looking a little bit rough. Just a little bit. But hopefully we can make the most of this. Like I said, a setup episode. There is a lot that we have to do, and there are a lot of ways in which this team will change. But it's just a matter of when we do that, because I think, at least for the first part of this season, I'm gonna keep this team the way it is, just so that we can see what we have with some of these players, because there's no guarantee that they are going to be a non-playoff team like they most likely will be in the real life NHL this year. We could very well be a playoff team. The main thing I was wondering, how many contract spots? 49 out of 50. So I don't know if we could pick anybody up if we wanted to. And let's see, we do have 2 unsigned players. Chalowski, of course, and Jordan Sambrook as well. And who is this? Adam Marsh. Okay. 7th round pick in 2015. Right. So 3 unsigned players and an unsigned goalie. The Swiss native Joran van Pottelberg, who was actually pretty impressive in the World Juniors this year. So a couple of decent prospects who it would be nice to get into Grand Rapids this year. That is not going to happen, and that is the big problem. We are handcuffed by some of these contracts, but I did want to take a look to see if any teams happen to cut a player that you didn't necessarily think they would, and that does not appear to be the case. The free agent list is looking as it should. James Wisniewski is up there, and then you got the likes of Eliash Boys and Mike Richards. So we're not missing out on too much there. Goaltending free agents, Ray Emery at a 78 is the gem of that list, although New Jersey, I think, cut Ken Appleby. But he is the only name that I really do recognize. The big question is, do we want to try? I don't know if we can. Do we want to try to sign a player? And if so, who would that be? Now, there are two goaltenders here who might be half decent. We have Parker Gahagen, who is out of the NCAA, one of those free agents. I believe he plays for Army. And then Ken Appleby, who is there. Defensively, who do we have for prospects? I don't know why Colton Tubert's top four. It doesn't matter. He is 26. You do have a couple of defensemen that might be half decent as well, including Daniel Brickley, one of the NCAA free agents, Neil Pionik, I have no idea. He is there as well. Josh Wesley, who I'm guessing the Carolina Hurricanes cut, who would probably be a pretty decent signing. And then there's Josh Healy, another NCAA free agent coming up, who is known for being a physical force. Like, he just hits everything. So we would have a couple of decent options there if we are allowed to. And then probably the gem, as far as forwards go, you have the leading scorer in the NCAA this year, Zach Aston Reese, who is available as well. You got a couple of those other guys as well. Iafallo, Clues, Ken Gillespie, Mitchell, I believe is one of them, Mason Mitchell. Although I thought he was a Caps signing, so the Caps might have let go of him. But Foos, Dries, you get the point. There are some options, not amazing. We're not looking at high top six forwards here as far as potential goes. But there are a couple of pieces, or at least a piece, that we could look to pick up to give us just a little bit of a boost that we might need. But again, that is our dilemma in this first season. What do we do? What do we do with this team, and how is it going to pan out? And that's really what I'm leaning towards, is we keep this team together, and in a way, we hope that we're not a playoff team. If we're not a playoff team, Henrik Zetterberg goes. I know there are quite a few people that want to see him stay. There's a chance that he could. If we are a playoff team, he stays. If we're not a playoff team, I'm going to try something new as far as trade deadline goes, and it'll be a way to shake things up. Rather than me choosing what team I want to trade with, we're going to randomize it a little bit. And I'm being a little bit cryptic with that because I'm not dead set on it yet. And again, I don't want to be like, oh, we're going to do this really cool thing at the trade deadline and then have us be a playoff team and we don't do it. But point is to bring that up. There's a chance that even if we wanted to try and trade him, that it might not work out, or that we are forced to send him somewhere where we just have to, shortchange ourselves on the trade, which is fine. That way, too, we could avoid getting a ton of picks as we usually tend to do. Aside from that, Franz Nielsen, he's on an awful deal, but we are going to keep him for a little bit, at least a little bit. He will stick around for a while. Justin Advocator, now that he is a third-line guy, he will stick around for a while. Darren Helm will be a part of this team. So the players that I listed that have no movement clauses, the only ones that we really have to worry about short-term are Zetterberg, Cronwall. Mike Green will be here for a while. He only has a 2-year deal, so I'm not opposed to keeping him here for a while. So really, it's Zetterberg, Cronwall, and Jimmy Howard that we have to worry about. And Howard might be the most difficult to move based on the way I am setting up this series. But again, a little bit cryptic. This is a setup video, though, because I still want to give you guys a chance to give me your input and your feedback on how you think we should approach this series. So that is where I will leave you for this episode, because I don't want to start the sim until I have that last batch of feedback. But in the next episode, we begin our first season with the Red Wings, and we will find out just where exactly do we stand. Are we a playoff team? Are we a lottery pick? Are we potentially battling it out for the number 1 overall pick, which really might not be the worst thing, considering that we are leaning towards being a rebuilding team. But I do have a plan for the Red Wings and how I want this team to pan out. But plans can change in more ways than one. I will stop rambling. As always, guys, and I cannot say this enough, your support lately has been ridiculous. Whether you are new to my channel and this is the first new series you have seen, it might be the first video of mine that you've ever seen, in which case I hope I made a good enough first impression that you choose to stick around for this, because it should be a very fun series. But again, your support on the poll video where I'm just like, hey, let's decide the team, that got over 1,000 views, which is stupid. Just stupid. And then you have the episode 0, which did really well, and there was a ton of feedback for that. I'm excited to see how this video does. I'm excited to see how this series does in general. So in the meantime, we'll have this going on. We're still going to finish up the Bruins series, and the fantasy draft series will continue for at least a little bit while longer. So a lot of different options from me, although granted it is all based on franchise mode. I said I was done. I really did. I said I was done rambling, yet here I am. As always, guys, thank you for the support. If you would, and really you can do whatever you want to, support the video in any way you deem necessary. Support the channel, support me. And I will see you guys in the next episode, where we truly begin to rebuild Hockey Town.